Hello and welcome to the Revelland Podcast. My name is Stephanie Singer and I'll be your host today. This podcast is a deep dive into the creative process of transforming a gig into an accessible, immersive experience. You can find an accessible version of this podcast with subtitles and a video on our website and on our YouTube, Discover Revelland. If you're all comfortable, I'll just give you a description of what I look like. So I'm a blonde white woman, I'm in London, and I'm wearing a floaty top because reverse everything you've ever known about London, it's actually warm today. And besides that, I'm sitting in my front room and there's a green background behind me. So a bit of context. This podcast is devoted to Revelland, and Revelland is transforming the performing arts. The team are based in the Netherlands and are working with professionals and artists to research, develop and present new, inclusive, immersive solutions for the performing arts. It's a pretty big aim, and I've been working with the team for the past 2 years, and I've been lucky enough to be consulting and working with 4 bands in particular to change their thinking from being musicians to being makers of music experiences. And that involves making music, but that also involves thinking about how we can create and curate an experience that unlocks what music is all about to audiences. So that's thinking about the ways that audiences come into gigs, the lighting, what people eat, what people taste, what people smell, what people feel, having an active curatorial approach that speaks from the music all the way into everything that's experienced by the audience. And so it's been my privilege to speak to the bands regularly for the past 2 years as they go across this process and start thinking about creating not just a gig, but a multi-sensory, immersive experience of their music. Everything's culminating in some gigs in September, in the middle of September. And as you can appreciate, in the last year, it has been the year of COVID. So we've had quite a lot of challenges thrown at us when we're thinking about immersivity and the sensory world. If you were even thinking about touch or taste, there's so many other precautions that now we have to think about when we're creating experiences, even in live gig settings, the ways in which we sing, the ways in which audiences can be spaced out. You know, a lot has changed during this year. So the bands have been through a huge transition. And this podcast is going to be devoted to tracking their progress. So each episode is devoted to a different band. And today I'm so excited to be with KRANKk. So for today's episode, we're with the wonderful, glorious, luminous, joyous KRANKk, who are a talented group of musicians who are going to share a bit more about what they do, and I can't wait. And just before we start, can you please give a visual introduction of yourselves and just tell us who you are and where you are?
Hi, my name is Aram. I'm in the studio in the basement of the Tricks, and I'm wearing a black hat, black clothes. I have a black beard, and the studio is full of acoustic panels.
All right, so I'm Thomas. I play drums, and I'm wearing a white cap, an orange vest, a blue t-shirt, and yeah, we're in the studio right now. Tricks is a place in Antwerp where we live, where we study music as well, and it's where we have our residence. So yeah. And by the way, we have to excuse the third person because KRANKk is a collective of 3. His name is Willem. He's the tallest of the 3 of us, and he couldn't be here unfortunately, but yeah, that's who we are. Hi.
Normally when Willem is in the picture, he's in a yurt, right?
Yeah, he lives in a yurt. He has long hair, but we put on a deal that when he shaves his head, I'm gonna shave my beard.
Oh my god.
Try to encourage him, people.
So I have to say this thing that I experience whenever you are near a conversation or in a creative process, you just bring joy into the room. Like, it's just instantaneous, and I think part of that is because you 3 are so connected and you have a real creative understanding, and I love seeing it and I feel it every time that I'm near you guys. So who are you, and how on earth did you all come to be together in each other's lives making music? And yeah, tell us how it happened.
So yeah, this happened in the conservatory in Antwerp, because that's where we study music. So I began, like, I played drums, so me and Willem, we studied jazz, and Aram, we studied classical piano. So that's where we met, like about 3 or 4 years ago. And we were into, like, you know, the old school genres, and drum and bass, UK garage, grime, and all, like, the subgenres. Yeah, we really liked those, and so we would, I guess, experimenting with productions in Ableton and Logic back then, and yeah, we just met up and started making music and having a good time, and started bonding, and I mean, yeah, really found each other, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I think most of the time it's the music that gets us so excited, because we really love these genres and playing it live.
Yeah.
And every time we think about that and working around that, just brings joy in our.
So tell us a bit about the sound. What do you sound like if you were going to describe it to an alien human?
So we experiment with, like, a mixture between acoustic and electronic sounds, and yeah.
Yeah, and I think the mood of our music would be dark and bassy, energetic, but also, like, meaningful in a way that it's not just noise or anything. Every bit has its emotional load, which we try to, like, communicate within our music.
Yeah, it's really nice to play with the dynamics within. You know?
Yeah, because there's a lot of craft that goes into each track of yours. You can feel that every piece, every part has its position, both in the kind of mix as well as in the arrangement. I think that's really impressive. It's just, I mean, because you do everything in house, right? You don't have an additional producer, so you're doing it all.
Yeah.
So in this crazy process that we're in, where obviously you've been tasked with transforming your gigs into experiences, how is it different, the process that you're kind of working on now? How is that different from a normal KRANKk gig?
Well,
is it
There's a
different?
lot.
to be honest,
Yeah.
no, I think the previous, like the normal KRANKk gigs, there were like,
It's with a lot less senses.
yeah,
You know?
of course, and it was just only the music that really ran through your body, but there was not a lot of context to it, which made our audience feel like, how do you call it, disoriented from time to time. They didn't know, like, if it was a part to dance or to listen or to be shocked or something.
Yeah.
And we couldn't, like, bring togetherness within our audience, right? There were moments and certain types of songs, mostly when there were more lyrics to it, that we could really bring people together and let them dance. But in the other alternative things, that more experimental things, it was like an individual journey, but we couldn't represent this within visuals, or it was only the music, and sometimes maybe difficult to understand.
And then when it was with lyrics, it was only when, you know, we could bring the actual futures, like the artists that we collabed with on the track with us, you know. And now we have this track with Manga Saint-Hilaire and Coco from London, and with Angel and Blue, and those tracks are you know, we play everything live, so people tend to, like, watch and be amazed at what they see. Like, afterwards, there were, you know, loads of people come to us and just, like, telling us, like, yo, we were just, like, watching you guys, thinking, you know, what the F is going on. Like, you know, these sounds, and then live, and just, they were blown away about that. And So we figured that we had to work on the energy given by other people in the front, really, and really leading the back, the listeners and the people there. So that's why we're working with dancers as well. About 4 dancers.
So let's zoom out a second. I think that there's a kind of something that you just said, Aram, which was that there was almost this, your audiences prior to thinking experientially, your audiences might have been like, what's being asked of us, or how do we respond to each bit of sound? And I think that's really interesting, because knowing what you are working on now, and knowing that we're thinking experientially, which really means we're saying, what are my audience experiencing, and how can I, as a musician, kind of curate and be certain that they know what's asked of them, or that they have things to kind of sensorially do, and we're inviting them to respond in certain ways. So in this kind of way, when you're thinking kind of experientially and also theatrically, you're giving the audience more clarity about how to hear your music.
Yeah. We're giving them a story, because there's a story behind our music, but by only hearing it, you don't get the full story. And that's like what we've been working on the past 1.5 years to try to clarify like what we do.
I mean, you get the full story, but only through music, I mean. So now we try to extend that by letting dancers express it, and through visuals and combining all of that, So it's a bigger picture of that story, you know what I mean?
Totally. It's like you're saying the music is the kind of center, and then once you've got that heart, then you get to think about how to amplify it using other tools. So I guess everybody's probably desperate to hear then what it is that you're actually working towards. I know it's called Reset. So let's hear a bit about the vision. What is it going to be like? Who's going to be there? What is going to be there? What am I, if I'm an audience member, what am I going to do?
Wow.
I think Reset is about, we didn't have a name for the show for a long time, and I think Reset came from from everything that's been going on the past year, and it was a really different life that we had to lead, adapt to everything, and I think Reset is a way to like give an opportunity to let that go and go back to a normal state of being without limitations. And I think that's, and like unify people together and create togetherness. I think that's Reset. That's what Reset's about. But then we're going to use it in a symbolic way, and in a musical way, and in a sensorial way. Like, I don't know if I'm
no, keep going. This is it. Bring it to life. You know, you've done so much thinking. It's also one of those moments when you're kind of trying to consolidate the level of a year and a half of work on this concept into something that can be digestible and communicatable. It's not easy. So this is what it's all about. Yeah. Tell us. So what will we sense? What will we see? And also, what have the challenges been? Because I know, having kind of been with you on this process, that it's not been straightforward planning Reset. You know, you say after the year we've had, and what you mean is COVID, you know, and as musicians, that's huge. So yeah, tell us a bit about what kinds of things you can imagine us seeing at Reset and doing, or that you're thinking about, or that you're playing with, exploring at the moment.
Yeah, well, we had a tryout at Revelland Gent about 2 months ago. About 1 month, 2 months ago, something like that. And so the process still is like, there's some stuff on stage design that's still going on, you know. So we'll have residents in the single in Antwerp for 2 weeks to work on that and to improve some visual skills. But I mean, what you will see is obviously the 3 of us live, and then dancers, the collabs, like the artists that we have our songs with.
Yeah.
Visuals triggered on our music through triggers and our instruments. And about the senses, like, I mean, I don't know if we have to go too much into that, because it's like some of that is still in developing stages,
And the surprise. It
Yeah,
needs to
yeah.
be a surprise,
Mhm.
otherwise.
Yeah.
If they know what it is, then. Yeah.
But we made 5 chapters. You can rewatch it on YouTube. There will be 5 online out of 6. And it's like a small documentary in like behind the scenes footage of how we went to work and experimented with like all different senses and things that trigger imagination, really.
It's interesting thinking about because knowing the process as I do, I know that certain details have only just really been confirmed, as in yesterday. That you will be live, which has obviously been a big question mark for the last year and a half, given COVID. And even though we say we'll be live, there's still the kind of like we're still all preparing ourselves for the fact that could all be pulled away at any moment. And so I appreciate that also things are in process, but I'd be really curious for you to share anything that you could about how you're making decisions, when you're thinking about the sensory stimulations and you're thinking about accessibility in particular. I know that, you'll be thinking about sign language, integrating that within the movement, but also what do you think the kind of other sensory details, so smell or what people will taste or what people will feel, how do you want to use them, even if you can't share what that people will be doing? How do you want to use those tools?
Yeah, so we've come across a certain technology that puts us in a position to like take touch as an input to anything. It can be the sound, it can be visuals, it can be lights, anything. And we still need to experiment with it, but I think it's possible to create a new level of interaction with our audience with technology, but like give it a sensory touch by using touch. And I think like you said, the dancers use sign language within their choreography. We look up like the meaning of the essence in our song to repeatedly put that in the choreography or in a certain part that's really the core of the song or something. And I think for the vibrational, for the feeling of the music, we work with a lot of sub-frequencies, but when we isolate the sub-frequencies, what's left of the music? That's a big question mark for us. Is our music standing alone on the sub-frequencies themselves in order to feel like the rhythm or the heaviness of the music, because it can go quite complex what we do with our subs, and it's still a question mark if that's we need to take in account what's happening there, because like people with hearing disabilities would only hear that and see other things, so it needs to be representable.
Such a deep insight into your process, because it's like and what you're articulating is that that makes me understand that this is an experiment for you. You're testing something that you've never tested. You're discovering something that you've never known in this process, and that is so exciting in lots of ways. Thinking about what is sound when it's not audible but it is felt, and what is translated in that kind of meaning is something that is it can push obviously your music, but it can also push technologies, and it can push the way that we think about gig experiences. It can push the way we think about amplification in the future. That's got so much potential, And it makes me really excited to hear you talk about it in those ways, actually. And the technology that you mentioned, the one that's kind of centered around touch, it sounds like the thing that most excites you at the moment is the way in which vibration works on the body. So the kind of touch, the contact between the body and the sub, or the body and the vibration of the sound, as well as the touch of an audience member to trigger other happenings within your gig. So it sounds like touch and the skin is kind of like something that you're thinking a lot about. And in the time of kind of COVID, how does that feel to be focusing on touch and togetherness at a time when we've just been isolated and
it feels very risky.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's something we need to try, I think.
Yeah, and I mean it's a long-term project as well, you know. So yeah,
at a certain point we need to break boundaries.
Yeah.
And if it means that the audience needs to wear gloves in order to touch each other, and that would be perfectly fine, then we'll do it that way, or we'll just wait out until it's okay
over,
again,
yeah,
until it's over, and use it, because those are all extra things. The music is still center of the full show, and yeah, I think with the other sense, with the dancers, with the people that are actually there performing, we can tell our story, we believe.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the interaction that gets enhanced with these extra senses, and our theme reset can be used with those extra inputs.
Yeah, right. Wow, well said. Damn.
absolutely.
Yeah, no, yeah. Correct.
And so I guess I'm interested then, because it sounds like the way that you're talking is very deep, and I know obviously from being with you across this process, you've been very careful and very practical, you know, testing things out regularly, not just thinking in theory, but actually getting in the room with different people and trying stuff out. And so it feels like this process, you have embraced this process to a level where I believe it might have an impact on your future as a band and the way you do lots of your gigs in the future. Is that fair to say?
Hopefully, yeah.
It's a certain thing that needs to, I think, if we take this into extremes, it cannot be done within a half an hour changeover.
Yeah.
So it will be very special gigs, and I think we need to figure out a way to incorporate this as much in festival gigs and club gigs as we can. But there's we're going into two separate directions for the moment, because we're not finished with our full show, but we're still getting bookings, and we're trying to incorporate as much of these things that we learned, but it's not always as easy, or the budget isn't always there.
It's not easy accessible in every situation, you know.
Yeah, but we try to push this through. That's one of our goals, to incorporate as much as extra sensory stuff. And yeah, I think the bookers or the festivals are getting a glimpse of, okay, they're really serious about this, and we're gonna give it a shot. So yeah, that's positive.
It makes me feel like it's the future.
Yeah, really. No, I think that people actually crave for more sensory
performances,
because yeah, you
it's just it
different creates experience.
It's something else. Yeah, there is one in Antwerp right now. I still have to go, but I know a lot of people who went. And it's like a full multi-sensory show of Vincent van Gogh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, they were like, "Yo, this is so cool, so new, and what the visuals and the sounds, and it looks amazing." And yeah, I'm like, yeah, we about to like, I mean, we're developing a show like that as well, you know.
It's interesting
follow us then.
because it's definitely
Yeah, no, but it's really it's really interesting and it's super exciting as well because it gives so much new insights, you know, on what it does and you know what you can get out of it.
Well, it's like
well,
in
it's really
terms of the sensory, the attention that the senses get, there seems to be throughout at least the 20th century this kind of cyclical, every 10 years there seems to be a spike in artistic interest in the senses, which is really interesting. Over the last sort of 10 years there's been this growing spike, and you can see it not just in music, like you say, you can see it in art installations, but also in advertising. You know, the language of feel and sense, they're everywhere in the ways that we're selling products, because we're starting to think about, well, two things. The ways that we make products now is there's sensory designers that are responsible for designing packaging and designing the sensory properties of a product, but also because we're more used to being sold not a product anymore but a feeling. You know, we want to inhabit the feeling of a brand rather than be sold a direct product. So it does feel like the kind of sensory conversation is in lots of places. And obviously with Revelland, the focus particularly is all around immersivity and accessibility. And I'm really interested in your journey with that, because I know I've said before on the first episode, I'm not myself disabled, and I can say that I think neither of you are would describe yourselves as disabled either. And so when we're talking about accessibility, it seems it would be really interesting, I think, for you to share what your process has been to not just design something for accessible and for inclusive audiences, but actually with people who have different disabilities. I know you have had a process around that, so I think people would be really interested to hear.
Mm-hmm. So in the full process we worked with 3 different people. First one was a girl from platform KRANKk. Her name was Yasmin, and she makes like really nice, you know, illustrations, and she's a painter, and she likes to paint and draw. And so we were inspired by this this work from Stan Brakhage on which you can make like drawings on like this film.
It was Steph's idea. Give her credit.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Great idea. But we did it, and it worked, and it worked out really nice, you know. And so we used those images on the immersive live session of Aftermath we did. It's a track of ours with Amos, and we will also use those visuals on you know, live.
Yeah. We need to create more of that.
Yeah,
because these snippets on film, they get, if you can create a loop, but it's done in a couple of seconds. It's really short.
But the impact is cool, you know.
The impact is really cool. These are textures, but not just textures. They're like symbolic figures and colors of how Yasmin felt listening to the music. So it's like a visual representation of someone that occupies with art, and how that connects to music. Because if we had an idea on how to create visuals on our music, it would be very different than a visual artist or someone with a different view on art and music than us. Because of course we understand our music, but how does someone else understand the sounds and the textures within our music, and how does this translate to someone?
Especially combined as well, like it works really well if you combine it, and yeah, the output is really nice. So then we after Yasmin, we worked with Yuki. Yuki is she's a dancer from Ghent as well, and yeah.
Also at Platform K.
Yeah.
So yeah, Yasmin was from Connect, it's a part of Platform K, and Yuki is a contemporary dancer.
Yep.
Also with disabilities, but she has a lot of strength within her and a lot of energy, positivity, and like she became our best friend during the period that we worked with her, and we're gonna still work with her. We gave our very good friend Rabba the task to make a choreography on the spot in a couple of days. And they shared their ideas. Because Rabbi, he's an Afro dancer, and he does a lot of styles, but he takes inspiration from people themselves instead of the style. So he worked on a very personal level with Yuki. He had respect for what was possible with her, and took out the maximum out of it. And we were really happy with the result, and like seeing from our perspective, we could we really felt the emotion that's being brought there.
Yeah, definitely, because it's as well like she has a solo on the very end of the set, and so it's like the set has two major build-ups, right? So the second one is like the ending is huge. It's like super heavy tune, loads of bass, really heavy energy, like and there is she has a solo on that, and she gets like visual support from like two other dancers who have like choreography as well, and that supports her solo even more. So it works out really nice. In the set as well, yeah. And then the third person that we had, but he unfortunately isn't in the show. But I had some one-on-one sessions with him. Bjorn is his name. Shout out Bjorn. Yeah, and he's a really nice dancer as well. And so we worked on, how you can dance and make music in a collective improvisation just by watching each other and listening to each other and playing with frequencies low and high and in space and with aura. And oh my God, we learned so much about that. Yeah, as well out of the feedback as well.
So is it fair to say that to get to each piece or each kind of element that people will experience at your show in September, there's been a whole process that's kind of gone into each element that's been not just kind of from you, but also you witnessing other people experience your sound and translate it into something else.
Yeah, exactly. And I think out of all these experiments, we will then finally have a certain type of workflow in our residency in the single, because like when we didn't work by playing live with Yuki in the rehearsals, but then Thomas did the sessions with Bjorn, and something totally different came out of that. So we might create choreography while we are playing it live, because it's a different dynamic.
So we've got the gigs coming up in September, which is actually not that long away. Considering we're in June.
Time flies, it's crazy.
Time flies.
Right? We spent a year and a half kind of talking about this, and then all of a sudden it's June, July, August,
2021,
September.
Crazy.
So tell us a little bit about how you're going to use the time between, because the next time that we meet you will be at the gigs in September. And we're going to hear about how all of this went. We're going to be in the room together. I will meet you finally in the flesh. We'll be in the room and we'll be experiencing your work. Tell us, what is the time between now and September going to be like for you?
Well, June. June.
June is as always.
It's going to be until the mid of June. We're going to be rounding up our studies at the conservatory. So that's our main focus now. So we don't have work in the summer for school for the second finals. But yeah, at the end of June we're gonna like work out the plot around Reset and make a really rigid idea of how we're gonna use this in the different sections of the show. And then I think the main thing we're gonna focus on is the scenography, how we're gonna incorporate everything into a scenography. And then it's just coming together with all these creative people and start working very focused and
we can add visuals as well, stage design, rehearsing, making new music.
Yeah, making new music as well. But I think the main part will be taking inspiration from each other and create the show while we're together. It takes more time to think about things than to do it. And I think by doing things on the spot, we work the how do you say it? The most effective, I think.
Yeah.
It was actually the show in Vooruit was created in 4 working days. But we thought about it for months, and the result wasn't what we were thinking about. So actually by doing, you're creating, and we just need to come together with everyone as much as we can, instead of like working out different ideas that eventually might not happen. Because like working with artists it's not something you can write and then do like a theater piece or something. It's really in our context it's a surprise every time, but in a positive way.
That's such a nice note to leave it on. And I've got one more question for you, which is if there's other bands that are thinking about transforming their gigs into experiences, for instance, thinking sensorially, what would your main piece of advice be for them?
Get to know a lot of people who know a lot of shit. I mean, because we you guys as experts in the sense in all of the senses really helped us out a lot, for inspirations and through the process. I mean, we had a call every month with different experts in all of these different fields. There were loads of people like into film, into arts, into like all the sensory aspects of a show who we called and just searched on online and asked through like the people in school, through you guys. So I mean, build your network.
Of course. And I think the main thing is get in touch with people that you're gonna see at your show, or that you want to see at your show, and ask them what they would like to see, and
also with the people who inspire you.
Yeah, of course.
That's great advice.
Yeah, and I just want to say, money is always a thing that comes in the first place, you might think, but in our process we came across a lot of things that we didn't know that was actually that cheap to rent at a show or something. So it's doable. Everything is doable. All the extras are actually doable. So it's just something you need to figure out where to get it and implement it in your show.
Amazing. Well, it's been such a pleasure as always to talk to you, and can't wait to see what happens in September. And that's the end of episode 2. It's been a pleasure to share this process with you, and I think that KRANKk have shed some really interesting perspectives about why multisensory work could be the future of live performance, and also been very honest and frank about their own personal experiences that they've been on. So you can join us every month as we talk to the different bands as they go across their unique processes. We've got Perhaps Contraption, KNARS and Kormac coming up, and then of course we've got the gigs themselves in September. I can't wait to share more of this thinking with you all, and you can join us every month. Follow us at Discover Revelland. And